Howdy. Howdy, 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 howdy. How y'all doing today? Dan Vaughn, voice of the KC Monarchs for a little hot stove update on a Wednesday. Glad you're along. And you see my counter there? Now, I swear this is what it looks like. On my screen, it says 31 seconds. On yours, it says like 10 minutes. I don't know what's going on, but all good. So we're going to pull the volume down over here. We're going to roll the show here. I'm working on some fun stuff, and I mentioned this earlier. We had a little stop-start a moment ago. I don't know if it's the internet gremlins, but those do sometimes rear their ugly head, and that may have been what it was. So hot stove update next. Here we go, and let's jump into it. First off, hope you're doing well. Hope you folks are staying safe, and hope you guys are feeling better than you feel in our house. Our house, little scuffling right now. So all good, but glad you're along. And let's give you a brief hot stove update. And again, I said this a moment ago that I had to, for some reason, I wasn't on the screen, but so we'll start kind of over here. But, you know, Joe Campietra is a very intriguing fellow when it comes to putting together, well, he's an intriguing fellow in general, but putting together a ball club. And I look at this one here, I look at this signing today, and I'm like, okay, I had never heard of this young man. Not that I would have necessarily, but, you know, he played in the Atlantic League and maybe paths would have crossed. You know, you've seen some kind of box score. I do check those box scores on a daily basis of the season. But let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm very intrigued by this signing. And let me pull the graphic down so you guys can see a little better here. But there we go. I got to do a little cleaning up here to get this. There we go. But Will Kingor, infielder out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Again, there is so many interesting little things about these signs. And I was talking about this earlier, just kind of preparing for the show, thinking, okay, every guy's a little different, but there's always something there, either behind the scenes, behind the lines, somewhere. And I think my detective work tells me this is one of those guys going to be very, very hungry. And Joe likes those guys that are very hungry, that are hungry to get back to chase those dreams. He had a very short sample size in the affiliate leagues in 2013-14. It's like 14-15, pardon me. And then spent time in the Frontier of Traverse City. And then most recently was the MVP, team MVP of the Atlantic League's Somerset Patriots. So you're seeing a guy, and this kind of fits those same players that maybe Greg Taggart and Gary seem to sometimes unearth. A guy who maybe everybody else starts here, he starts here, but everybody else kind of plateaus, and he's kind of slowly rising. And I think you're seeing that here. Looking at his baseball reference page, this is a guy that has not hit below 300 the last 3 seasons. Double figures in home runs the last 3 seasons, 2 of those in Traverse City, 1 of those in the Atlantic League, which is the rival league of the American Association. So Will Kingor has got some pop. I also will look and tell you, are there any foreign investors? I don't know what that means, mate, but no idea what that means. So no clue. I'm not sure. I'll answer I'll answer y'all's questions, but I just don't even know what that means. Let me take you back to his career, his first years. He went to Slippery Rock University, which I always love saying that name. Isn't that one of those cool schools that you said, you went to, remember the old hat, Slippery Rock? And you're like, oh, where is that? Is that really a school? But it really is a school. It's a university in Pennsylvania. And Slippery Rock, well known. Of course, I remember just back in my day in college, those were cool hats to have. Those Slippery Rock caps were cool. There's always some cool caps, cool names out there, and that was one of the coolest names of all the schools out there. But played 2 years there. It was drafted by the Tigers, and this is where it gets interesting, I think. This is where the detective work comes in. 6'3", 180 is what the listing there on the baseball reference page. Probably more like 200-ish to 195, what we have in our roster. 28-year-old, be 29 this summer. 28th round pick. And, the draft doesn't have that many rounds anymore, but that was back in 2014. 2 years at Slippery Rock. His combined average at 2 years at Slippery Rock, and these are both years he had over 400. But in 2 college seasons, He hit 432, and that's in 97 ball games, 2 home runs, 57 driven in. Now, this guy seems to have found his power stroke, and I'll tell you why. Because when you go to that draft, he goes to the Tigers organization. He spends 2014 in the Rookie League, GCL. He gets 1 game at AAA, Toledo. In 48 ball games in the GCL, hit 278. 21 driven in, no power numbers, no home runs. He goes to 14, spends the entire season in the Midwest League at West Michigan, has a pretty good year. 286, 38 driven in, 1 home run, 112 hits on 111 ball games, a hit a ball game, slash line of 378 OBP. My dyslexia get ahead of me there. He slugged a line of 358. Not bad numbers, right? I mean, those are all good. I think where we get a little confused here is that the power numbers weren't there at that time. This is a guy, I was saying, you sometimes have prospects when they come out of the draft and they kind of plateau. They don't really, they're good looking prospects, but they don't really do much climbing. This is a guy probably came out of the draft maybe a little below, but has slowly risen and made himself back into a prospect. Does that make sense what I'm saying? He's reinvented himself, the kind of guys that Joe Cappietro loves, guys that are hungry, the guys that got numbers, because you take yourself out of that affiliated ranks, 2015, he goes to Traverse City in the Frontier League, hits 280 there, 8 home runs, 48 RBIs, a little bit of a jump there, 86 ball games. In 17, listen to this jump. In 17 and 69 games, he played fewer ball games, but drove in 58, hit 14 long, went deep 14 times, then came back his 3rd year in Traverse City, played in 95 ball games, 311, 13 home runs, 60 RBIs that year for the Beach Bums, which leads him to Somerset in 2019, which I'll get to that more about the Somerset story in a moment. But he had 15 home runs, career high there, 65 driven in, 129 ball games, hit 321, an OBP of 399, and a slugging of 492. So a guy that across that line, very solid at a very high level. I mean, very comparable level to what you're seeing in the American Association. That Joe always gets fired up about, and whether it be a guy who's this close and he feels he's that close, or maybe a guy who's hungry. We talk about hungry guys, especially in pitching. These AAA, AA guys who had some success but just ran into numbers situations. Joe seems to really cash in on those guys, and guys like this. I think, and this is a guy who is suddenly looking like a prospect. Now, granted, it's late in his career at 28, but it's not too late for a left-handed bat, power bat. And these are guys that not only can they find themselves back in affiliated ball, can find themselves in Korea or Japan as imports as well. I mean, these are the type of guys that have some numbers, and there's a high ceiling here. This is a guy that's kind of hit the wall every time at every stop. He didn't have that problem. We've talked about guys who hit the wall at stops. This And all he's done at every stop since then in independent ball is continue to lay that resume and make it look better and better. And now you got a guy who's coming to the American Association hungry in a ballpark I think he'll hit well in. And I think a guy that's going to be super at one of your corner spots, probably at first base, but going to play third. And that's another thing. I love this detective work thing, Detective Dan here. If you look back at his defensive alignment, came out as a shortstop, middle infielder, played some first as well, kind of bounced around that first year with the Tigers, stuck him at first base the entire time. But since that time, he fits the T-bone. DV, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I'm consistently here once a show. Dang it. He fits the Monarch pedigree. Well, you know what? Technically, the pedigree previous. So let's go with that, okay? So, yes, that's where I'm thinking. It's my thinking. He fits that pedigree that Joe likes, too, that a guy that, he's made himself into a prospect. He's just going to get seen here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. So, Will Kingor, infielder. Joe's quote there, we're excited about having Will with our club. Brings defensive flexibility, productive middle of the lineup bat. Plug him right in the middle of the lineup, and he's going to play, again, just pulling the reference page. mostly going to be first and third, but when he was in Somerset last year, he played 28 ball games, 32 ball games in the outfield, 64 at third, 32 at first. Again, and that's huge. When your rosters, are hampered a bit, you need guys, you can't carry, let's say you carry a utility guy and you carry two utility guys. So you carry a backup infielder and a true utility guy, and it has to cut one of your bullpen pieces. Well, with this in the pennant ball, if you got a guy that can play multiple positions and be flexible, Darnell Sweeney, for example, can play the outfield, but also in a pinch can play the infield. And that's huge. And that lets you carry, 11, 12 pitchers sometimes because of that. And that's a big deal. Being able to have a flexible lineup card where guys, and remember, we've seen this before. We saw, I'm trying to think the very tail end of a couple of guys' seasons recently running over at first base, playing the outfield. Not uncommon. I remember, I'm trying to think who was very late in the year 2019, Mason Davis got a couple of cracks in right field and actually a couple of cracks in center and left as well. So some versatility is always huge, and I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, sorry about that, Ray. You got that. Very nice numbers. Hungry is a perfect word. And that's the thing, Kenny, is a perfect word. And let me, my syntax here, when I say that pedigree of the T-Bones, that's those T-Bones clubs that won playoff, a series, a playoff series, two, then, a championship, and then made the playoffs. That I'm talking in past tense. And then that future tense is what the Monarchs are going to have with Joe's philosophy. And I'm looking forward, because I guarantee you, Hunter Dozier type. Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy right there, Ray. Great analogy. And those guys flourish in this league. And I again, it's the hunger. It's the hunger thing that really floats this lineup card. And that's what, and Joe's going to tell us that. He'll tell us that over and over again. And I know that's some I'm running a little behind this week, so I do apologize. But we were hoping we'll debut our show next Wednesday. And I'm looking forward, and I thought about this morning on my walk. I'm looking forward to asking Joe, because really, look at it this way. Nothing's going to change philosophy-wise how he puts his card together or his roster card together. Let's put it that way. Nothing ever changes there. It's all going to stay. His philosophy doesn't change with the T-Bones or whoever. Now it's the Monarchs. So when I go back and forth, and oftentimes you're going to see me write in bios, because actually the T-Bones signed player A in the spring of last year or whatever, or in the fall, but now the Monarchs signed player B. And this is the case right here. Ken Gore is a Monarch signee. But what I mean by that, so I don't, it only backwards in time, okay? Because but the philosophy for Joe, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him, that ain't going to change. And I love the way he actually kind of changes with what's out there per season. I imagine he's going to have really good insight into with this whole MILB contraction and how that goes and how that's affected how he's putting his lineup and how he's putting his roster together. By the way, Ken Gore was at Somerset, and part of that whole MILB reshuffling the deck chairs is that Somerset's now the AA affiliate of the New York Yankees. They basically replaced Trenton in that Eastern League. Trenton now is floating around out there. And also Somerset didn't play last year, so Ken Gore didn't play in the Atlantic League. So he's a guy that's also been resting. You have a lot of well-rested players. The she's in there in the association, but a lot of guys haven't played, and that's why it's very interesting to see the guys who pitched into foreign leagues and they played down that Constellation League or whatever. We're going to talk a bit about that down the road as we get closer to spring training. Will that make a difference as how guys come out of the gate? Because I expect, and I saw this a little bit in Australia recently, something we talked about over there, because guys didn't have a full MILB or independent ball season. A lot of those players have been they didn't take off like gangbusters. The players have really done well. For example, former KC player Mikey Reynolds is off to a pretty good start in the Australian Baseball League, because Mikey played in St. Paul last summer. You're seeing some guys that played. Dominic Tomshaw is having a good run in the ABL as well. Trying to think of Aaron Brown's pitching well in Brisbane, and he's going to be a part of the Monarchs bullpen. I just think off the top of my head here, but a lot of guys. I mean, a lot of guys haven't played since 2019. Talk about some rust. There are a handful of guys who did play last summer, but it'll be interesting to see how those guys compare to the guys who haven't played since 2019. So that's your update right there. Sorry about the freezing up there. I don't know if it's an internet thing, gremlins, or what, but don't forget, next Wednesday, we'll be back on our show at noon Central Time. We're going to bring you the Monarchs Live. It's our first off-season edition of Monarchs Live. It replaces the old show, so we're going to have our Wednesday's Wisdom, which will be more or less a look into the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and some of the history of the Kansas City Monarchs. We'll also honor some of the things we talked about a little bit last summer that were related to the Monarchs and to the Negro Leagues that we just by chance were talking about on Wednesday's Wisdom and didn't know we'd be having them later on. So that's all exciting as well. We'll have that for you. Also, I want to give you guys this too. From the folks on the ground in the tickets, become a member. You know, we talked about this last week, and I know there's been several folks have already become a member. About that next week, but becoming a member is pretty cool, groovy, whatever you want to call it. Become a Monarchs member right there. I'm gonna give you all the details right here on the show as well. Just kind of a little wrap up here, but all clear here. Thank you very much. Member details. Here are your details. I'll put this up on the screen for you. But become a Monarchs member, and here's what you're going to get. Let me pull this up for you guys so you can read it here. There we go. What you'll get: Monarchs team jersey, Monarchs baseball. You'll get 2 tickets to opening homestand. Those dates to be determined. Of course, the fixture schedule is not out yet, but it's you'll be coming up. 2 admissions to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. If you've not been there, that place is awesome. Early access to season ticket options, 48 hours for the general public. Early access to select-to-seat events. Placed on a quarterly ownership circle newsletter. And for more details, go to monarchsbaseball.com. Become a Monarchs member today, and it's all on our website. You can go there and go about halfway down, and you've got the Monarchs membership details right there, and it shows you where to go. And also, you can become a member, and then you can also get you some Monarchs gear. That tab's right next to it, so check that out. So Monarchs memberships available right now. No need for operators because they're right there. They're right there online. So go check those out online, monarchsbaseball.com for a Monarchs membership. It's really a great plan to really get you rolling into that Monarchs frame of mind for 2021. Again, in case you missed the news, it is a roster edition, and it will be Will Kindor, 28-year-old out of Pittsburgh, PA, former for a short time Tigers farmhand, Slippery Rock University. But this is a guy that's hit a double-figure home runs in 3 consecutive years. He's hit 300 in 3 consecutive years, at least 300. And this guy brings a little pop to that middle of the card and some versatility on defense and some hunger, it looks like, just looking at that baseball reference page. And a guy who was the team MVP of the Atlantic League's Somerset Patriots in 2019. So there we go. Welcome, Will. And great job, Morgan. Good job as always. She does a phenomenal job with our graphics and keeping us up to date here with a Monarchs Live hot stove update. Dan Vaughn, voice of the Kansas City Monarchs, telling you much love. Love you guys. It's been a rough week for us. My wife's feeling better. Thank you for all the messages and prayers for that. I'm feeling better today, this afternoon, than I did yesterday about this time, but it's been up and down. And we're fighting through it. And at least right now, I'm feeling. I could call a game right. You know what? I could call a game in my sleep, right? So, but anyway, appreciate the thoughts and prayers from you guys, and wishing you all a great rest of your day. Virtual hugs, everybody. Let's always remember to be kinder, better, and more loving tomorrow than we were today. Let's be better fans tomorrow than we were today. Let's love each other more tomorrow than we did today. Let's just keep being better and keep being great Monarchs fans, part of our Monarchs baseball family. Love y'all, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday, or when news merits. You can check it out on our Twitter page, also our Facebook page, and of course, Dan Vaughn Jr., my Twitter page. So any breaking news, we give it to you right here on Facebook and our social channels. And a great job, as always. Tip of the cap to Morgan Kalenda and her fine work in that department. So put that graphic up. No close yet. We'll have it for you next week, though. I got a hot stove open and close coming, and I got a show open and close coming. Cha-ching. How about that, baby? I did make the most of this off season, right? All right. Much love. See y'all, and we'll have a great rest of your day, everybody.